Welcome everybody to the Three Gun Show. I'm your host, Dave Hartman, and this is episode 322. We've got our buddy Jeremy Reid on the podcast. I really love this interview with Jeremy. I took a bunch of notes for my own three gun game, and I know you're going to love it as well. Not only is Jeremy one of the hardest working guys in three gun as like a constant volunteer at matches, match director for like club matches and stuff, and a trainer, he's also a high level competitor in the sport of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Who knew that? I mean, obviously you can tell by looking at him. He's a big dude. But years ago, he had a decision to make. Do I keep going down this road, or do I switch up my sports? And he chose competitive shooting. And so we talk about that and how he went all in to figure this sport out. As things often do in life, the last few years he had a few life changes happening, and that caused his training time to be scarce. And so he was forced to reevaluate how he approaches things. And that's when he came up with the concept that we're talking about today, called skill performance training. Skill performance training. You guys are going to love this. I was really I was enthralled while we were doing this, and going back through the editing process here, I took even more notes. So you're going to enjoy this one. A couple announcements before we get into the interview here. One, so last week we had on USPSA, and we were talking about several matches in the multi-gun calendar, and Jake Martins mentioned the Wyoming Governor's match as a multi-gun match. Now, it's listed in Practice Score and on the Wyoming Recreation website as a one-gun match, pistol, revolver, PCC, all the USPSA divisions. So I reached out to Jake and asked for clarification on that, and he said that he misspoke. So he's going to be sending out some information on that. So the reason I mentioned this is because a lot of people have reached out to me through DM or email and said, hey, I want to sign up, and it's a one-gun match. What do I do? Guys got to remember, like, I don't have anything to do with these matches. So I'm happy to help where I can, but reach out to the match director or or in this case, Jake, for specific information about matches. And second, hey, big announcement. We just reached 2,000 subscribers on YouTube, on the YouTube channel. Pretty excited about that one. So more content coming soon here, including this review I have of the Magpul PRS Lite. So if you're interested in that, make sure and find Three Gun Show on YouTube and subscribe to us. I'll have a link in the show notes at threegunshow.com/episode. Actually, just /322. So let's try that again. threegunshow.com/322. And then I think I said last one or second, but this is the last one. Had a lot of great guest recommendations recently from people, and I really do thank the audience, you listener. I really thank you for putting those out in front of me, because a lot of times people are doing cool things that I miss, and so I do appreciate guest recommendations. And if you ever have one, you can email me, dave@threegunshow.com. But don't forget the why. I've gotten a couple recommendations where it's like, hey, you should have Jim on, but they don't say why. It's like, okay, what's Jim doing that's cool? Happy to have him on, but let me know. So interesting people doing interesting things. Let me know those people. Dave@threegunshow.com. All right, that's all I got for this one. Hope you guys are having a great week. Hope you enjoy this interview with Jeremy Reid. I know I did. So pull out your notebooks and listen up. Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Good to be on finally.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. It has been too long. You and I talked several years ago about some differing opinions, and I've always meant to have you on, but for some reason never worked out. And so I'm pumped to get you on here and get your perspective on things.
Oh yeah, should be a lot of fun.
Well, so for folks that haven't heard of you before, you've been hanging around in the USSL UML circle for years. But how did you get into competitive shooting?
Oh God, I kind of got into it by accident, really. So I was living in Las Vegas at the time. I grew up in New Jersey, which is just a god awful state. So when I finally kind of got out of there, I decided I want to do some free man things, and decided I wanted to buy a gun. My wife at the time, my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, she was terrified of guns at the time. Terrified. Also grew up in New Jersey. So we bought a 22 and started playing, and she was still a little, so decided, you know what, we're going to take a class so we feel more comfortable. Went and took a class. It happened to be taught by Pete Rensing, so great instructor, and he was running all the matches in Vegas at the time. I think pretty much still is, but kind of took that, had a great time at the class, felt way more comfortable, and kind of just going back and forth. He was kind of like, you guys should come out. You should try a match. We have a match tomorrow. Just come watch. It'll be fun. It'll be good. And so I came out the next day, said, all right, let me see what this is about. Get there watching, and he goes, hey, come try a stage. And he proceeded to put me on a stage that consisted of long-range rifle and a pistol spinner.
Oh, no kidding. Your very first stage, he puts you on a pistol spinner.
Yeah. Long-range rifle from an awkward, what are those, the wheel things, the spools. From an angled spool, and then a pistol spinner. So needless to say, it went terribly. But it was fun. It was this was, kind of what most people say. So I never knew you could do this with guns. I thought you had to kind of stand still, pick it up, shoot it, put it down. So had a ton of fun, and pretty much from there, kind of just came out every weekend and started shooting. Came at a really great time. I was, at the time, had been training jiu-jitsu really seriously and competitively, but kind of had that got to get a real job now moment. So got a real job, and then couldn't train quite as much or as hard as I like. So it kind of filled that void, and pretty much started volunteering every weekend. You need help setting matches up, tearing down, and pretty much dove headfirst in. And that's been kind of me and my wife's life for the 5 years we lived down in Vegas. I was pretty much doing that every weekend, sort of volunteering to RO matches, major matches, and really just, dove in. So.
Crazy. So, and you've been in Texas now for 4 years, right? So we're talking about 9 years ago?
This was probably, 10 years ago, 2011, 2012.
Oh, wow.
Was when we started.
Yeah. 10 years ago. Crazy.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you're training jiu-jitsu at a high level. Are you a naturally competitive person? Is being involved in sports something you've always done? And did this fill in for the jiu-jitsu transition, or what was it? Really filled in. I wouldn't say I'm I am a fairly competitive person, but I've always just been involved in sports. I love the process, the training, the getting better, learning something new. So I've always had some form of a hobby that was physical, and involved getting better. And that was jiu-jitsu for a very long time. And then kind of like I said, I had a choice of get a real job or live on somebody's couch and try to win a world championship. So opted for the real job, and then kind of serendipitously found competitive shooting and dove headfirst into that. And that's been my life for, 10 years now. So were you good to begin with? Because you're a pretty accomplished shooter at this point. So what was the learning curve like?
I was awful. So I joke, still to this day, I joke with Pete about I was kind of the consolation. So my wife, when she came out, she was terrified to shoot a stage for the first month. And when we finally said okay and convinced her, man, she drew that and just full send, full sprint, full send, and we're all like, what was that? And Pete was like, she's gonna be good. And was like, you guys should come train and should do this. And so I like to joke that I just got tagged along because he saw a lot of potential in her. And she's done very well. I had to take a break recently for the kids. But yeah, no, I was awful at first. God awful. It was definitely a war of attrition to get where I'm at. A lot of studying, a lot of trying new things, and just, I honestly just not quitting, just continuing to do it.
So did that, you know, being a competitive person, did that piss you off when you weren't good and your wife was like naturally good at this?
Yeah, a little bit. But honestly, I don't say used to it. That's kind of been the story of all of my competitiveness or sports career. I was never the one who looked like, oh man, that's going to be the whatever. But I was the one who, whatever you put me in, I was going to kind of rise to the occasion and find a way to do well. That was kind of me through football, through, you know, working out and lifting weights, and then jiu-jitsu, and now shooting. So.
Got it. So you're not what you would consider a natural athlete. You just kind of do it by brute force. Yeah. More just will. Not so much brute force as like I'm gonna figure it out.
Okay. I'm gonna study the better way to do it. I'm gonna study the more efficient way to do things. I'm going to, learn it. I think the easiest example was I was a fat kid growing up. Love sports, but I was a fat kid. And kind of in high school said, nope, I'm going to start working out. Started lifting weights and then said, I'm going to figure out how to get really good at this. So I went to school, got a bachelor's degree in exercise science. After that said, I still want to learn more. There's still a lot more to learn. Went back and got my master's in exercise physiology. So kind of, just I'm going to continually try to learn and be better is kind of how I tend to get good at things.
Got it. And so when you started competitive shooting, weren't nearly as good as you wanted to be, how did you attack getting better at it? Like what was your strategy?
Early on, just doing it. I kind of had a just do it, right? Try to get to the range as much as I can, shoot as many matches as I can. And then from there, honestly, what helped me more than anything early on was just volunteering to be around it. Helping RO matches, helping set up matches, helping tear down matches, even major matches. I learned so much early on ROing major matches, just from, again, watching how the top guys do things, from just pre-stage routines to how they attack a stage, and then also more importantly, how the good guys, but not the I don't want to say your mid-pack shooters, but your guy who, man, that looked really good, but oh man, they struggled here, kind of the differences between them and some of the top guys, right? Kind of what were the real differences between that top level and then the pretty good level.
Got it. Yeah. Like, so what is it that separates someone who's like on the bubble, like on the cusp of becoming great, from someone who's fighting for the top 10?
What I learned from when I was ROing, and I'm kind of happy it stuck with me pretty early on, was, the guys who seemed to be full sending it were the guys who, I don't want to say seemed good. That sounds kind of bad, but, weren't quite the top level, because it was that risk reward, right? You're going to full send, throw 4 birds in the air at the same time. And if you get it, great, but you're going to save 2 to 3 seconds. If it goes really bad, you're getting 40 seconds in penalties.
So it's like a risk versus reward kind of thing.
Yeah. Kind of the top level guys, to me, shot, I don't want to say conservative, but much more smart. They pushed where they could, but were very deliberate where they needed to be. We're kind of the pretty good guys. We're just full send, see what happens. If it links up, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Got it. Yeah. It reminds me of like the Ninja Warrior thing. Yeah. Do you ever watch that on TV?
Yes.
So there's like the strategy now is basically like you got to run through it at full force. And if you jack it up, it's going to jack it up hard. You're going to hit hard, but that seems to be their method now. And if you don't do that, if you try to go conservative, It doesn't seem like you end up on the leaderboard.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
Well, so you've been in competitive shooting for a decade. So how has your training strategy changed? So you've gone from just starting to shoot, just getting out there and volunteering, and then you did a lot of observation of other shooters, people that are better, people that are mid pack, and trying to figure out what makes that great person great. So what do you do these days?
So kind of my training has really changed, I'll say, in probably about the last 4 years, kind of drastically. Early on I did, I don't want to say the generic stuff, but the same stuff that, we've all heard and known, the drills, whatever it is, the 20 alpha, the plate racks, the load 12 challenge, all of your standard stuff kind of structured the same way as most people do. You go to a range, I'm going to work on XYZ, you set it up, you run through it, get better. And not to say that there's, that training doesn't work. It obviously works very well, and it's very good at building a skill base. But I was kind of forced to change up my training. So I had kids. Kids take up a lot of time.
They'll get in the way.
Yeah, so the whole days of hey, I'm going to go to the range 3 times a week for a few hours kind of went out the window. So I really had to kind of adapt, and really forced me to look at how can I get higher quality training and more value out of my training in less time and or started to go more towards more training sessions, but shorter time. Hey, the kids are taking a nap. I can run out and get 20 minutes of dry fire in, right? And back in. Okay, this day I can get to the range before everybody wakes up for an hour, but I got to kind of get there, get in, get out. Really kind of changed my training of that. And while I was in that process of trying to figure that out, I really kind of stumbled on what I like to call skill performance. And that's kind of the philosophy of my training and how I really kind of structure my training now, and what I think is something that is lacking in a lot of training. So I'll kind of, I guess, quickly explain what I mean by skill performance.
Yeah. You got me hooked here. I'm interested.
Yeah. So what I found was it would always take me, 1 or 2 stages before I quote unquote warmed up and always felt good at a match, right? But it's sometimes, well, if you're trying to place really well, you can't really just give up 2 stages.
Yeah.
Give up 20% on 2 stages and then hope to get that back.
So that's me for sure. I definitely feel that.
Yeah. It was me for a long time where, okay, now I feel good, but now I'm kind of digging myself out of a hole instead of being, kind of where I should be or into running. Right. So really, I kind of said, well, what is performance, right? Because again, what I'm doing on the range in practice and what's happening at the match is not the same, right? Mm-hmm. I know I can do these things. I do them all the time, but why can't I do them in the match? Or why do I struggle more with them in the match? And so that really got me thinking about motor learning. I did a lot of studying that in grad school and with, jiu-jitsu and MMA, and it was, what is it? What kind of separates the best from, again, the proficient, we'll call it, right? Versus the high performers versus just being proficient in something. And I started to really break it down. And to me, it comes down to, there's 3 aspects, right, to performance. There's kind of, you have to assess what's going on, process what you need to do, and then execute, right? Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people spend the majority of their training just on the execution, right? Okay. A little bit on the assessing, right? And that's for us kind of the stage planning. Okay, there's a plate rack at 15 yards, so that's going to be, a little bit tougher, higher focus. There's some long range, we assess a lot, but really it was that processing, right? And so for processing is kind of that in the moment. Okay, I'm standing here at the plate rack. What do I have to do this correctly? And then be able to execute that kind of in real time. And, when I started looking at it, I looked at like, well, what makes Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods so great, right? Like, is Michael Jordan the best shooter ever? No, there's probably guys who can shoot free throws just as good as him. Most, if you just line them up and had them take shots all day, there's guys, right, who can probably shoot just about as good as Jordan, can lay up as good, can pass as good. Well, what made, Jordan or Kobe or whoever so good? And it was their ability to process in the moment in real time, what do I need to do? Should I take the shot or should I pass it? Do I drive in or do I pull up, right? Kind of those little moments of processing what they have to do and then being able to execute kind of immediately. Whereas a lot of people were great at executing, but they couldn't process when they needed to do what. And so that really changed up my training into, I'm going to start training that process, right? How do I train myself to go, what do I need to do? And then do it right then and there. And so my training now is really focused on what you would call on-demand type drills, right? It's more, most of my drills are still very specific skills, right? But I don't do them over and over and over again in a row. I tend to maybe only do 2 to 3 reps before switching to a different drill or even switching to a different gun and then coming back. I don't really do a quote unquote warm up. When I get to the range, I get right into my drills. Because again, I don't really have a warm up when I get to a match. It's great when I go and I run the plate rack 10 times and now I'm going to start timing it. Well,
that's when you pull the camera out and you start doing it for Instagram, right?
Right. I'm ready to go. And, a lot of times, again, training for me for a long time was just reps. How many reps can I get in, right? Just pure execution over and over and over. And I found myself, man, I leave the range feeling great. Well, yeah, I ran the plate rack 100 times today. And by the end of it, I was doing great. But then I get to a match with a plate rack and I have 3 makeups. I'm like, whoa, right? Like, what happened? And it was, you got more in the groove of it instead of being able to on demand say, what do I need to do? What is the trigger control I need for this target? What is the key points to accomplish this task, right? When you just do it over and over again, it just kind of goes on autopilot. Mm-hmm. And that led me again to kind of more studying. And I found a few studies that were, what is the best way to train for results versus retention? And there's actually a really cool study with some youth basketball camps where they said most camps are focused on results because, hey, you're paying me, right? You're bringing your kid here, so I'm just going to have you shoot free throws over and over because at the end of the week, if I have you do nothing but free throws, at the beginning you hit, 6 out of 10, but at the end of the week you're hitting 10 out of 10. See how good you are? But they would bring those kids back, a week later, and they're back to 6 out of 10, right? None of that was retained.
So this reminds me of something that I've observed in shooting classes, and especially like tactical shooting classes or in like concealed carry shooting classes, is that they'll baseline everyone at the beginning of the class, right? When they know nothing, they've been taught nothing, they're cold, it's morning.
Nervous.
Yeah, they're nervous and all that stuff. And then they'll baseline them at the end of the day or at the end of the weekend and be like, hey, look how much you improved. And it's like, well, no shit. I've been practicing for 2 days straight.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's exactly kind of what we see. But yeah, the retention isn't there, right? And ultimately, to get really good, you need retention. And so then they had another group who did random shots. So they shot and they worked the same mechanics of shooting, but they didn't always shoot free throws. They shot sometimes closer, sometimes further, sometimes here, right? And again, the difference in there is every shot, right? You have to process, okay, how far am I? What angle am I at? And it really, again, was training the process versus training just solely executing one standard thing over and over. And they showed that even though that group didn't have as good of results at the end of the week, those kids retain their progress, a week or 2 weeks later, much better than the other group.
Interesting. That is super interesting. That, I guess that makes a lot of sense, especially when you had just told the Michael Jordan story before that of his strength was processing and knowing what needs to be done in that amount of time, because those basketball students were doing the assessment and figuring out everything that needed to be done in that amount of time. That's interesting. I like that. So how then did you translate that to shooting? And I guess, well, you do a lot of training other students in your, I guess your world. I don't know, in your routine,
Sure.
But you do a lot of teaching and stuff at your local range. So how did you translate that into teaching your students and then again into your training yourself?
Yeah. So again, as I studied more about it, I really found out it's that processing that's important, but you also still need this, it's kind of, you can't overlook the execution, right? The execution is important. It's just most people focus too much on that. Right. So the way I kind of structure my training now, and it's kind of the same as I structure all my student training, because I think it really, again, helps with retention, is most of my drills are still very specific drills, right? Focusing on very specific skills. So like pistol, it tends to be a lot of steel, paper, paper, steel, paper. Because I think, the transitions between those two, and then different distance papers, partials, right? It's all kind of the same. You want to call it tempo, different trigger controls, different sight pictures, however you approach shooting those. I think that is kind of the core of pistol shooting, right? When can I push? When do I need to be deliberate? When do I need to be super deliberate? Right. So they're really those type of drills, right? Paper, steel, paper, steel, paper. But I never do more than probably 3 reps at a time before I either switch to a different drill or change it somehow. So maybe now I'll do it on the move. Or I will just do a couple draws to a farther piece of steel mixed in there. Or I'll switch to a different gun. I'll pick my shotgun up and do some shotgun drills. And again, still all the drills are the same, right? Shotgun tends to be mostly shooting on the move type stuff, especially to the right side, which is kind of the weak side in a sense, the harder one to shoot. Requires a little bit more fancy footwork. Gun pushes you a little more because you're kind of moving away from it. But again, different shotgun on the move, wide transitions with the shotgun's a big one. For rifle, it tends to be a ton of offhand work and positional rifle, whether it's long range or even just smaller targets at a distance where I need to reverse kneel, work on a tank trap, kind of standing supported, kind of any of those positions. So most of my drills are kind of the normal drills you would do, but the way I structure it is much more random and changing. So like I've done something that's still one of my favorite ways to train, where I'll go in and I'll have, 2 drills for my pistol, 2 drills for my shotgun, 2 drills for my rifle. And then I do like a dice roll, like random dice roll. And the first one's my pistol drill, the second one's this. And then, hey, if it's odd, it's this drill. If it's even, it's that drill. And then I'll roll 1 dice and say, okay, pistol's this. Sometimes I'll roll 2, and then it's pistol and shotgun. And I'll do pistol, transition, do the shotgun drill. Again, really focusing on forcing me to process what needs to happen. So I really like that with 2 gun type drills, because let's say it's, I'm shooting a plate rack with the pistol. I have to draw, process, what do I need to do? What distance is this plate rack at? And then what trigger do I need to run that plate rack? As soon as that's done, if I pick my shotgun up and I'm going to shoot on the move, now I'm processing, well, what do I have to do here? Okay, make sure you mount it, make sure your footwork's right because you're shooting on your weak side. And again, really forcing myself to work on that processing and then executing, not just pure execution. Right.
So you're practicing then not only variation of the gun, variation of the drill, but then you're varying your position. So it may not be the ideal squared up stance and perfect grip and all that stuff.
Yep. Yeah. Sometimes, when I get to my shotgun drill, it might be the same drill, but one is pick up and, rip the 5 shots. One, it may be pick up and back out on the 5 shots. One may be, shoot forward. So again, the drill's the same, so I don't have to spend a ton of time, like, yeah, I don't want it to be confusing, right? I don't want too many drills where it's like I'm having to think about which drill is it again. I kind of want to know it, but I'm adding enough variance that when I pick that gun up, I have to process what has to happen, right?
Right. Okay.
So it's going to be a little more deliberate, or it's stationary, so you can kind of push a little bit more. Again, all of those things that happen in a match, right, happen in a stage, that allow me to, pretty immediately be able to process what I need to do and what's happening, and then execute it.
Okay. I like that. I like that a lot. I can imagine like situations where I've done exactly the wrong thing, the complete opposite of my plan, or I've picked up the gun and then just done like a brain fart of like, where am I? What am I supposed to be doing right now? So, and that is definitely something in my personal game that I can that I now, thanks to this conversation, have a tool to work on. That's really cool. I feel like that. I like that philosophy. I feel like that's going to help a lot.
Yeah. And again, it was just stuff I noticed studying some of the, best in other sports, but also in our sport. I'll never forget first time I ever squatted with Daniel Horner. Mm-hmm. And, you kind of, right, like Daniel, right? And he does certain things on the move that you're like, how are you doing that and moving? And like your upper body looks detached from your lower body. Like, right. Daniel definitely does some things. But for the most part, you just kind of like, he just executes very well. But the more I kind of shot with him, the more I started to see, and I'll never forget when I first noticed it, it was the stage started with it ended with some slug targets, right? But the way the load worked was you were going to end up with like 3 extra slugs, right? Mm-hmm. And so, I don't want to say the correct plan, but the way it was you pretty much got to a target that had 4 hits, but you were going to have like 7 slugs in the gun or something like that. And I remember he got there and just started ripping slugs, like whack, whack, man, whack, whack. And like, I'm like, dude, who shoots slugs this fast? But he went like, it was like hit, miss, hit, miss, hit, miss. But the second he had his last miss, like literally it was like whack, 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 whack. And then it was like he immediately knew, nope, I have 0 makeups left. And his last shot or last 2 shots were boom, boom.
Huh, okay.
It was like, pushing slug splits faster than I've ever seen anybody outside of like slug paper, because he knew he had 3 makeups. But the second he hit his last makeup, immediate, like in the middle, which I'm like, dude, I couldn't do that, right? Once I'm in that, I'm shooting this fast until I'm out.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and that really opened my eye. And then so I started noticing again on other things where he'd push where he could, but the second he just was so good at, again, processing, where am I, what's going on, what do I need to accomplish? And he would push crazy fast, but then immediately process, nope, now this is super, deliberate. And I really noticed that shooting with him. And that's, again, what really kind of led me down to those little things are what's making such a huge difference. And so, again, that really led me down to studying, again, that process and, again, skill performance, right? Processing what I need to do and then executing versus just executing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good example of, changing your cadence right in the middle of shooting like that. One of the things you mentioned earlier was changing up your drills and picking up your shotgun, blazing 5 and then moving backwards versus like moving them as you're stepping out. And that got me thinking about, there's always that conversation of when you have to lean around a wall. Is it faster to shoot the targets coming in and then shoot the one around the wall? Or is it faster to go all the way in, shoot that target, and then come on the way out? And the correct answer is always, well, it depends, right? Yep. but being able to do that on the clock and execute the way you're going to execute versus just like, I'll figure it out when I get there, however I do it, and then being able to do it both ways. Like, that's a great example of being able to change things up in the middle. And when you're talking about it in the middle of your training, like, okay, well, this time I'm going all the way in and shooting on my way out. And okay, well, this time I'm going to shoot my way in. and then transition from there. So that it's a very subtle, very small difference, and it makes a very small difference on the clock. But that's another good example of like that variation and getting your brain to pay attention to that variation and then execute that under time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was again. I noticed, man, these are the little things that I'm not doing, even though I always felt capable that I should be able to. But match after match, I couldn't do that. And so it really, again, I changed that training up. And since then, I feel like I've done a lot better with that. And so it's kind of helped me shoot pretty well the past couple seasons. So
nice. Well, okay. So for folks at home and everybody listening, what are a couple other examples that you can give for people that are looking to do that kind of variation in their own practice? What are some, maybe a couple drills that they can set up?
Yeah, so I would say kind of easiest way to start implementing this is when you go set up one drill. You could do all 3 guns or even just pick 2, one drill for each that you're going to work on that day, and just literally just bounce back and forth. Do 1 or 2 reps at one or 2 reps at the other. That's kind of what I would call, stage 1 of getting into that, right? Having to change gears and process a little more. After that, you can start doing both of them together, right? So your pistol drill, drop, rifle drill. Then start with your rifle drill, drop, pistol drill. After that, start with just a couple drills or variations of drills. So maybe it's the same drill, but this time I'm going to do it on the move versus standing still. Just really little variations. It's not meant to be overly complex, but enough variation that forces you to, again, process the difference. And then no more than 2 to 3 reps per one before you change and do something different. And then kind of random. And no warm-ups. No, I get to the range, I'm going to draw, do 20 rounds here, I'm going to shoot the plate rack, and now I'm ready to train. Because for me, I don't get that at a match. Right. And so I kind of, that's why after 1 or 2 stages now I feel good. Well, I need to feel good on stage 1. So kind of start training like that.
Yeah, it reminds me. I'm going to throw someone under the bus here. So I've had my friend Nephi Cole on the show a couple times here, and every year he comes to the Wyoming Governor's match and, does like a little brief walkthrough, and then he always goes over to the zero range. He's like, yeah, we're going to go practice. I'm like, no, dude, you don't do that. You don't practice before the match. Like you had to practice a month ago. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that is a really good point of doing it on command. And then I guess that really does help fit into those short range sessions that you have to abide by now that you're a dad and you got your time split.
Yeah. I'm also lucky that, well, not lucky, it was intentional. Me and my wife bought 10 acres kind of out in the middle of nowhere. So I do have the ability to shoot like shotgun easy. I can shoot shotgun kind of right in the backyard. I have a kind of a mini berm that I can do some rifle or pistol work. It's a little more intensive.
Nice.
But again, I would just, hey, can you take the kids for, 20 minutes, or they're watching a show and I slip out back and rip 20 rounds of shotgun real quick. And I'm back in the house. So yeah, those little mini sessions, which again, really help with that because you're never getting warmed up and in the zone. It's kind of on demand and boom. And then later that night, you can even do the same thing with dry fire. I do the same thing. I don't do any drill more than maybe 3 times in dry fire before switching it up. So you can work all of these same concepts into your dry fire. That actually may be the best place to kind of start experimenting with it. Because you're going to feel like, whoa, like that whole, again, when my brain has to process things, that it becomes a little bit different.
Yeah, plus dry fire gets boring too, so that would be a nice way to split it up and keep it fresh.
Mm-hmm.
So
very, very good way.
Do you ever run into like a situation where you're like, okay, well, this drill, I'm going to pick up the shotgun, I'm going to back out as I'm shooting these 5, and then you pick it up and then just do what you had done the previous drill? Like
Yeah.
just have
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah.
what do you do in that situation?
So that's actually a good caveat into a bigger thing that I probably should mention, kind of a disclaimer.
Oh, buddy,
to
tell
this type of
us
training.
everything, man.
So one of the disclaimers to this type of training, again, going back to that basketball study, is results will be lower, but retention is higher. So you're going to leave, like when I started training like this, I would leave feeling much more discouraged and upset than my old sessions, where I'd feel awesome, like I'm the man when I left. But again, I found this would allow me to perform better at matches and retain those skills better. So the caveat is you will leave, your practice will be a little sloppier. You'll have probably more misses, probably more mess ups, more exactly what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Oh man, I was supposed to back out and I didn't back out. I shot this standing still. Man, the best advice I can give is when that happens is, if you can in the middle of it, right? Let's say you're 2 shots into 5 shots and realize, then we'll back out on the last 3, right?
Oh, okay.
But
so then that is like, failing the first part of the drill, but then you are still using that processing power.
Yes.
Okay. I like that.
Exactly. Because it's understanding, like when you do that, that's like, it sucks when you mess up, but that's kind of like, mistakes are good because I can fix them. That is exposing that, yeah, the processing is what I'm struggling with.
Yeah.
Right? And again, how many times have we done that on a stage where I was supposed to shoot these targets on the move and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm not moving.
Yeah.
Right? Or I was going to load off to start and I pick up and start shooting and I'm like, I was supposed to load. 2 things that really happened great there and why, again, I really love this type of training is that used to completely destroy me for the rest of the stage. Because now I'm thinking about that and I'm just like, oh, I was supposed to do that. Why didn't you do that? And then you got all these thoughts running through your head and now I'm not executing or focusing. Where starting to train like this would allow me to go, hey, you're supposed to do that. Okay, we'll get back on track now. And again, that processing got much better to where I can get back on track a little bit faster. And now it becomes a mistake in an array, not a mistake for an entire stage.
I like that. Okay, well, so backing up just a little bit to something you said that you felt a lot more discouraged on the range. So have you ever heard that practice like don't end the day on a low note or something like that? Always end the day on a high note or something like that? Do you practice that? Do you like train until you're like, okay, I'm feeling good about myself, I better go home now? Or do you just go home and let it sit?
So sometimes, I don't like ending on an awful note, right? If I completely just jack up a drill, like, yeah, no, I want to do it again. But I don't train until I have the most perfect, best run ever. I don't necessarily try to end on the highest note ever, but I definitely don't want to walk away on a really low note. But that actually does bring up something else that I did start to do in my training. And this was just a personal thing I had and still struggle with, and I probably should start implementing it a little bit more again. But I was having a really bad string of too many makeup shots. But I would make them up fast, and my time on the stage would still be good. And so, right, like when that would happen, you don't really notice, right? Because you get through the stage, and that was pretty good. And then, I had 4 makeups here. Oh, well, yeah, that's not good. But my time was still okay. And I would do the same thing in drills. I have a makeup, make it up, boom. So I started in my drills. If I miss something, I leave it. Because now when I finish that drill, I have to look at it. And now it's going to upset me. And it's going to force me for my next rep to say, hey, make sure you get that. Instead of, again, in matches and even in my training, I was having a lot of makeups and just not fully realizing how many it was. Because you just, miss makeup, okay. And then you finish the drill. That was pretty good.
I like that. I like that a lot. And, that also helps with the ammo conservation, which is something that's really important nowadays.
Yes.
So, gosh, I can't remember who this story is about. It's one of the young shooters that's now like a 20-something-year-old shooter. But gosh dang it, am I getting that old? I can't remember these stories now. But what it was, it was like a long-range drill, and it was okay, get down, shoot this target. And the experienced shooter. God, I can't remember who this was. Would be better if I had names, but the experienced shooter gets in the position, settles, takes a shot, eliminates the target on one shot, and then drills over in one shot. The young person that's being taught gets in position and just ding. And it's like, well, you just blew 7 rounds. Like, how long did that take? It took 7 times as long as it took the first person. So those makeup shots, while it's great to, Comstock's awesome. Let's be honest. Virginia count would suck, but it's great to have that as a backup during a stage. It's not good in practice because then it teaches you bad habits of just relying on all the makeups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's definitely a fine line, right? Long range, It matters a little more, right? A pistol plate rack, right? Like, because we kind of had that. We've had that argument before, and I will always argue this to the death because Mike Voigt told it to me, and that guy was a genius at just about anything shooting related.
Yeah.
It was especially offhand rifle, right? And this was a really back in 3-Gun Nation days when that offhand rifle plate rack was like the determining factor.
Yep.
And Voigt's argument was the 7-round plate rack is your fastest plate rack. And we're like, well, what do you mean? Isn't the 6-round? And he goes, no. You shoot at a pace that you will have one makeup. Because if you shoot at a pace where you will never have a makeup, it's going to be too slow. Right? You have to guarantee every single shot, right? Like if it was a Virginia count, how you would shoot that and if you timed it versus how you would shoot it knowing you have one makeup, but not 2 or 3 makeups, but knowing you have one, right? You're going to shoot it at a good pace, and sometimes you're going to get all 6, and it's going to be a really good one. But if you do have a makeup, it will still be faster than over-confirming everything, right? And that right there was just blew my mind because I'm like, wait, what? But I'm like, yeah, that's smart and works. But it's the most perfect example. That's what our sport is, right? I mean, I argue with people all the time with, USPSA, oh, you guys aren't accurate. And I'm like, we're as accurate as we need to be.
Yeah.
If you forced me to shoot alphas, I can shoot alphas, right? Same as when there's a penalty target, right? And it's a skunk target. Right?
Yeah, or when there's like one of those little MGM 4-inch hexes out there and you got to hit it with a pistol. Like I can hit that. It's just, why would I spend my time, hitting the dead center of an 8-inch hex if I didn't need to?
Yes, right. And that's our thing. But again, why would I always push to the pace where I'm going to have 2 or 3 makeups every other shot? Well, now that's a little too far. And again, to me, that's the beauty of our sport, right? Is pushing and allowing to have some failure but get back on track versus being overly deliberate, right?
Yeah.
So again, all of us can shoot a stage perfect and clean. It's just going to be super slow.
Yeah.
But it's how do we do that as fast as possible? And then it's really playing with those fine little margins, right?
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. I like that. I like where your head's at, man. So I'm once we're done talking here, I'm going to ask you for a final thought. But do you have anything else that you want to talk on this topic? Because I got some other questions I want to ask you here that are, but it's a wide switch. So do you have anything that you that you want to tell us about skill performance before we move on?
No, not really. Other than just try it out and understand it's going to be a little more frustrating in the training. But, man, it has helped my performance at matches probably more than anything. In the past, really, 3-4 years now I've been training like this. And it's, again, allowed me to kind of elevate my game. And then especially if you're kind of like me who has limited time, limited rounds and availability. Kids are also expensive, besides just being
I've heard.
time consuming. They're also expensive and ammo has gone up. So
yeah,
I don't have thousands of rounds. I don't have the time to do it or the literal thousands of rounds to throw down range. That this has greatly improved kind of, again, increasing the value out of each round down range and the quality of each training session for me.
Got it. Yeah. So high value training is what we're looking at here. So, okay, Jeremy, So we talked about your shooting. We know that you train people as well, but you also run club matches, and then you're actually going to be doing some match directing on a major match level. So what match do you have coming up this year that you're going to be the match director for?
So the major match, major multi-gun match I'm running will be USSL Expedition Multi-Gun Nationals. And that will be at the ETTS gun range in Waxahachie, Texas. Just south of Dallas. Waxahachie.
Never get tired of saying Waxahachie.
Nope.
Such an awesome name.
Never get tired of seeing the signs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I have a habit of shouting that out, even if I'm the only one in the car. But so ETTS range is fantastic range. I love the people there. They always put on a great. They have just a great environment. It just seems like a very good community oriented thing. Nice barn there to hang out in the hot summer and cool off a little bit. I love the place.
Yeah, it's that was honestly probably the biggest decision in bringing it to ETTS. We knew we wanted to kind of do one in Texas, just because Texas is awesome, but that's also where I live. And it's also kind of part of what we're really trying to do at USSL is kind of, when we started, things were a little easier, but everything was out of Vegas, right? And people, they got tired of always going to Vegas and Pro Gun Club and the moon rocks and the dirt and the dust and breaking ankles and knees and feeling like you're going to die by the end of the match. And so, we also wanted to, hey, if we're going to try to grow this thing and, want to support more clubs and more shooters, let's try to spread these matches out. And that's kind of been one of the things we've been trying to do in the past few years. It does create a little bit of logistical problems when, you're trying to haul equipment, all the way to Wyoming or Colorado. So it has done some challenges, but again, we really wanted to spread out and try to reach more shooters and really, again, try to grow this thing. So we knew we wanted to spread one out here. And the fact that I'm here just kind of made natural sense that I would head this one up. And we really kind of thought Expedition, just because it's kind of a very different style than, I don't say everybody in Texas, but then most of your bigger traditional Texas matches.
Yeah.
So the Expedition style is very fast, really fast in your face stages. And this was kind of, it really kind of grew out of something we realized running a ton of matches and, weekend matches and, trying to just constantly turn around between pistol and this. And we started we need, it gets really hot in Vegas. We need fast reset. We need this. So we started pulling targets in closer, 2 guns per stage kind of in the summer months. And what we found was, it's shot really fast, but we were seeing more people shoot penalties on 3-yard wide open paper.
Well, because you got to push it, right?
Parse, right? It's like that deceiving, hey, this is wide open paper and there's a bunch and I'm on the move and I'm just going to move through here and blast this just as fast as I can pull the trigger. And you started there's a lot of FTNs going on here. And so it kind of became its own fun little challenge with super fast reset. You could shoot a ton of stages. We didn't have some people shoot 2 divisions. Again, we just figure a lot of shooting real fast, drag race it out, have some fun. And so that's kind of the style of this match. There will be technical stuff in there. You're definitely going to need a high skill set. But everything will be, within 100 yards. Most stuff will probably be within 50 yards. Really just let's go fast, burn it down. But do it right. There's going to be enough challenging that, you can't just be sloppy and win, right? You still need to shoot well. You still need high skill to win. But it's just going to be a ton of fun.
Nice. So, okay. So let's talk a little bit about the stages. So because they're super fast and, a quicker turn, a quicker reset, is it a higher stage count than normal?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, usually this match is a 15 stage match.
Oh,
yep.
That's almost double, isn't it? It's usually 8 stages for a weekend.
Kind of the original thing was when we did it was like, hey, man, you can get through some really quick. I'm envisioning this year, we may do 12 stages, just to give the option of shooting it in 2 days if people want to. Because we know sometimes that third day can really cause some a lot of extra travel plans and issues, and there shouldn't be any reason we can't get through these stages pretty quickly. But the other cool thing about this match, because it does shoot quickly, is we do allow people to shoot 2 divisions. So that gets really fun, especially when we start talking some of the 2x4 division, playing with the PCC, and then I think we had, I want to say it was Maxwell one year, shot like the 2 most it was like limited and like 2x4 somewhere. Just like that is some serious gear changing going on.
That sounds like Adam.
Yeah, like, okay, we're really changing things up here. But yeah, just really this match is going to be a lot of fun, a lot of technical work and skill work, right? Being able to shoot on the move and not have too many makeups and really hit your offhand rifle, and some of that's going to be really important. Stage planning also comes in here because we do a lot of options, a lot of shotgun pistol options, and again, back to those 4-inch MGM hexes. Yeah, I don't have to load a shotgun, but man, 8 of them takes a while with the pistol versus just kind of ripping through with the shotgun. So really try to balance that. I think my personal favorite stage was an expedition stage where it was like, are you going to shoot all of that? Are you going to use the shotgun and shoot all the knockdown shotgun, or are you just going to go all pistol? And I said, I'm doing a shotgun. I can load the shotgun and I can blaze that thing. And I want to say maybe it was Nils. Probably Nils. An insane pistol shooter was like, I'm shooting that all pistol. And we went through and I mowed him down shotgun, hit my loads good, got done. It was like 27. I'm like, yeah. Nils goes through, not a single makeup with the pistol, just perfect, deliberate. Got done, 27. And it was like, man.
Whoa.
That was cool. Because
that is cool.
Yeah. Like, he couldn't have shot my plan in 27 seconds, and I couldn't have shot his plan in 27 seconds.
Well, yeah, it's just totally leaned on your strengths, though.
Yep. Lean on our strengths. Again, hey, if I'm really good at that, why not? So, that comes into play on, hey, know your strengths, because you can definitely stage plan towards it there. So that's kind of the idea of the stages.
Last year at the Wyoming Governor's match, kind of had a similar thing. We had to walk through like this big mud puddle and then around a bend to get to a stage. So I'm back in my truck and I'm trying to plan like what I'm bringing. And I'm talking to Aaron Hayes. I'm like, this seems like that first part's all shotgun, right? And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm going shotgun. I'm like, all right, I'm going shotgun too. And then as I'm walking up, I see Nate Staskowitz and Houston Russell and Jacob Hetherington all with their pistols on. I'm like, shit, they're gonna do it so much faster, and they did. Yeah. Some of those choices are fun. The options like that. It's and especially when you're talking like a Nils level shooter and a Jeremy level shooter, when you put you guys up together and then you end up with a very similar score.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
That one was fun because it was I'm like, I couldn't have done that better, and his pistol run went perfect, and the times were like identical. So I'm like, all right,
perfect. All right, so if people want to shoot the EMG Nationals, that is the 16th through the 18th of September at ETTS, and USSleagues.com is where you can find more about that. Jeremy, before we go, I heard that there's a change coming to optics, and we got to talk about it. So so division changes in USSO. We already talked to Cody about the beginner, or what was it called? Beginner division, entry level division, exhibition division.
We either settled on exhibition or recreation. I think it might be recreation.
Damn it! I just had that written down. Anyway, so there's a new change to a division. Tell us what it's about, and we can talk about it here.
So kind of. I mean, most people can probably guess, but it's a little different. So in our optics division, which was formerly TAC Optics, we are going to allow 2 optics in that division. So obviously, whatever optic you run on your rifle is going to count as 1, but then you get another one. You can put that on your pistol, you can put it on your shotgun, or if you want to put it as your 45 on your rifle, you can do that as well.
So
I would
pistol,
imagine most are probably going to go pistol.
So red dots are now allowed on pistols in optics division. Yes, the crowd goes wild. So I like the way that you guys did it. So you didn't just say like, okay, well, dots are allowed on pistol, which I think is really cool. I think people know where I stand on this by now. Like I personally am not going to go get my pistol milled, but I do think it should be allowed in the division because, it is like the leading edge of the tactical world, and it was for years and years, and now it's kind of fallen behind because of tradition and because of lack of organization. But the way UML and USSL does it is 2 optics in the division. They can be wherever you want. I like that. I think that's cool because it allows the shooter to decide.
There is a caveat that it must remain there for the entire match. So you can't this stage put it on your shotgun, next stage switch it somewhere else.
So that's a really good caveat because there are a lot of things that you can switch in UML, like yes. I guess uppers. You can switch guns. You can, if you're in an optics division, you can switch to a red dot on your rifle instead of your LPVO, depending on what stage. So that is a good caveat. That is something you need to talk about.
Yes, that the loophole rule, as we'll call it.
Yeah.
I will quickly clarify that we never writ in that you are allowed to do it. We simply took out the rule that range master needs to come over and approve it. In our experience, that slows matches down, becomes a giant pain. And what does a range master really do? If you go, my rifle broke, he walks over, pretends to look at something, and then nods and goes, okay.
For sure.
And I've seen too many people get bumped to open because they didn't get some guy to walk over and nod, or they went home and fixed their gun and switched the next day, and now they're shooting for no score. And so we just kind of took that out, which then led somebody to go, well, since I don't need approval, I can just – and so we were like, do we want to? And it just kind of came down to, is it unsafe? Is it really that much of an advantage? Not really. I mean, there may be certain circumstances, but for the most part, just – well, let's go. Have fun. Stay in your division. Don't change calibers.
Yeah. Well, so I didn't know that that's how that came about, but, gamers going to game, right?
Yeah, that was, everybody thinks that we wrote it in to be, you are allowed to do this. And no, we just took out the rule that prevented people from doing it.
Interesting. Honestly, that's, I totally thought that too. So I'm glad you clarified on it.
Yeah. That's one of the misconceptions is that we wrote that. Nope. We took the rule out that prevented people, and then gamers gamed, and we kind of said, well, let them have fun.
So if I'm not mistaken, and this may be years ago and they've remedied it, but I believe switching a gun without RO approval at Mystery Mountain Mystery, whatever it is, Superstition. There we go. At Superstition was a DQ.
It's possible. I'm not
it's
sure.
possible they may have changed that, but
yeah,
it was not a good situation. Let me say that.
Yeah, we had seen horror stories of people either shooting for no score, getting bumped to open, and or at best case it was just right. Range masters are busy anyway, right? Driving around with real, and then it was now they got to drive around to pretend to look at a gun and ask you what happened. It's not working. Okay.
Yeah.
It just kind of was why are we wasting their time and other people's time? And so, that's, and then, right, ultimately let people have fun. And if I now am shooting for no score because my gun broke and I didn't get somebody to walk over and nod, that's not so fun for me.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, so on the optics topic, so you think primarily people are going to use that for a red dot on the pistol?
Yeah.
There's going to be some sort of small percentage that will use it on a rifle, on a shotgun, and probably an even smaller percentage that will use it as a 45 degree on their rifle, right?
Correct.
But I guess if you're borrowing gear like at a club match or something like that, then it wouldn't put you into open automatically.
Yes. Yeah. So they're definitely Really, the kind of more I think about where is it going to go, I am probably one of the weird ones personally that is going to put it on a shotgun instead of a pistol.
Oh, controversial.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. It's more, so I am left eye dominant, but right-handed. Okay. And it took me a few years to realize like why I sometimes was okay with shotgun and sometimes sucked really bad. Like, because it made no sense to me. It would feel the same. I'd run a drill and go hit, and I would pick the gun up for the second round and go miss, hit, miss. And I'm like, they felt the same. And it took me a really long time to realize I am mounting to my left eye, and so I'm mounting off the target. Now, it never really bothered me rifle because only my right eye can see the reticle, so that eye just took over.
Right.
Pistol, you move the pistol a half an inch, and it's lined up to my left eye. But shotgun was a real struggle for me, and I really had to train myself to squint and kind of force my right eye to take over before I mounted the gun.
Interesting.
And it took a ton of training, and I got pretty good at it, right? I run a shotgun fairly well. But for me personally, having a dot to where I don't have to worry about that, and I don't have that happen occasionally. It will still happen occasionally, like switching real quick from a pistol to my shotgun or a rifle to my shotgun where my right eye is used to taking over. But for me, man, that makes a lot of sense. It's better for aerials and then especially targets in the woods. Because when that depth perception goes, when I squint the eye, I have to open it, and then I'm like open, squint, and it gets a little tricky to keep track of.
Yeah.
So personally, I would do that. But I also, again, think it's going to come down to matches, right? If I'm shooting a match that has 80-yard, 60-yard pistol shots, maybe having a dot on my pistol would be pretty beneficial.
Yeah, so, that's the point I made when Amax and I were talking about this. Like, you remember, did you ever shoot Vortex shooter sorts?
Yes.
You remember those long slug targets that Jeremy had up there? Jeremy Moore? Like, those would have been nice to have a dot on your shotgun, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. But, I mean, he had a ton of long pistol shots, too, so it might have been nice to have a dot on your pistol up there, too.
Yep. Yeah.
All the dots.
Right? All the dots. So.
All the dots. Well, so USSL has like a rules committee, right? So rules are changed through discussion. So how did this rule get through?
Kind of like all of them, a lot of bickering and arguing. No, no. So one of the things we really try to do is on the rules committee, we try to have a variance of people from different areas of the country, right? That's one of the hardest things, in probably any organization, but especially multi-gun, is shooting can be drastically different when you're talking about like West Coast Bay matches to, I haven't shot a ton up there, but like, your Midwest, Northwest, in the woods type matches to I got a 1,000-acre cattle ranch in Texas and we are doing whatever we want out here. Right.
Yeah. An example of that is like a jungle run. Like when I shot in the Carolinas at Thurgan Nation matches, the jungle runs they blew my mind because in Colorado, we have no jungle. It's just flat.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Shooting up in mountains and stuff. Right. Like,
well, so we didn't even have mountains. We shot out so I lived in Denver, which is on the other side of the Rocky Mountains. I think you're referencing Cameo, but the other side of the Rockies, where Denver's at, we shot out east, and out east is like farmland. It's damn near like Kansas or Nebraska.
Just flat.
Just flat, dude. No trees whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, you're right. Like it depends on where you're at in the country. Like 3-gun is completely different everywhere.
Yeah. And so, right, certain things make sense in certain areas and may not make sense in other areas. And so, that was just a challenge. Something that we kind of ran into early on was, whoa, okay, there's a lot of things that people do very differently. And so, we've always tried to listen to, the shooters as much as we can and really try to, at least have all sides be heard. So our rules committee is split up, kind of with people all over, and we get in and argue. And then one of the other things we do try to do is kind of argue on what have we heard, right? Some of these arguments go on the internet, right? What is the consensus? What are people saying? What are the cons? What are the pros? And so we tend to go pretty lengthy back and forth in some of these. And so this was no doubt one that went for a while. And ultimately what I think swayed most of us, especially swayed me, to kind of changing it. Cause again, I put a ton of training in, right? I spent a lot of time practicing and learning how to shoot iron sights and getting pretty good with iron sights and learning how to squint my eyes with the shotgun. And I don't want all these, young people coming in with their dots and right. So
can't have these kids coming in and messing up our game.
Right?
Sound like a shotgunner now.
But again, this is how I've always shot it, right? So there is that natural feeling of this is the way it should be.
Yeah, for sure.
And what ultimately kind of got me was, two things, but one thing overall, which is this going away? Is this a fad? Is this something where just everybody right now is putting dots on their pistols? And I don't think so, right? We've seen it grow year after year. I mean, God, we first had this discussion in the rules committee probably 3 years ago. And it was immediately shot down. That's dumb. That's ridiculous. Just shoot open. And then we kind of got brought up again the next year. And it was like, well, I mean, yeah, but it's really just a tactical crowd. So, is it worth upsetting people and making people buy new gear? And right. And here we are again with the same argument. I'm like, look, it's not going away. Right.
Yeah.
Red dots on pistols is, I don't want to say here to stay, but God, the little carry guns are coming with them already. Carry optics is blowing up. Dude,
I'll tell you, Jeremy, the conversation that I had with my buddy Forrest on the way back from Jeff Kirkwell Memorial Match that started this whole topic for the 3-gun show. Like, I think way back in episode, I think first talked about it in episode 300, I think. But what started it for me was that conversation with Forrest. And when we were talking about updating the divisions, I liked the idea of making limited more limited, of course, just removing all whatever from open and making TAC more TAC. So I wanted to get rid of the D60 and things like that. But when we got to the dot on the pistol, I was ready to fight him. I'm like, all right, pull over. We're going to fight at the quick trip over here. And, or the Casey's. That's what it was, the Casey's. I pull over. We're going to have blows here. But what he said to change my mind was, what is on your pistol in this truck? And I was like, okay. So I got the Masada with a Vortex red dot on it. And he's like, I've got my Glock 19 Roland Special with I think he's got a Razor or something on it. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't argue. It was like, okay, well, if I carry this because it gives me the best advantage, then I can't say that doesn't belong in mm-hmm. tactical, because that is the purpose. I'm not carrying this to win a competition. I'm carrying this to win my life if that ever needs to happen. Mm-hmm. So right there, he convinced me. I was like, damn it. I guess I have to argue for dots on pistols now, man. You got me.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's done nothing but grow over the past few years. To the point of, carry guns now have them. Mm-hmm. Everybody I know has one with one. We're getting more new people to matches with them on their pistol.
Yeah.
And man, and that was kind of the other thing was, hey, right? If this sport is going to grow and become what it can be and, arguably should be, we need more people involved.
Yeah. Right? For sure.
And if it's going to break down that barrier and help get some of these people, because again, what we do is hard, right, for your average person shooting. And if we can make it a little more comforting for them, mm-hmm. a little more friendly, not have to change gear, or now you're in open and, right, just, hey, let them come, bring their gear. And if it can attract more people, can attract some of that crowd, then why not? And then again, ultimately, it's not going away. So if not, we're just having this argument again next year, and then it's just going to become, at what point does it happen instead of is it going to happen? Yeah,
exactly. So, do we do it this year, or do we do it in 5 years once everyone's pissed off at us?
Yes.
So this is a really good point. First off, the last 3 pistols that I bought, and this might be misremembering, but the last 3 pistols I bought were my STI DVC 3-gun, the Masada, and then a Glock 48 MOS. I shouldn't say bought. I should say got. And then the Masada and the Glock 48 came with dot cuts on them. and they both will have dots shortly. But so yeah, you're right. The 2 tactical defensive pistols that I purchased after I purchased my race pistol have dots on them. And then the second thing was, you made a really good point about bringing new people in and lowering the curve and stuff like that. I always talk about my friend Mike Griswold that runs Big Ben 3-gun in Rama, Colorado. It's one of my favorite Colorado matches. And he's done that for 6 years now or something like that. And he told me like in, I think 2018 that people would come with dots on their pistols and like a tack rifle and a pump shotgun and be upset when they got thrown into open, which again, I don't understand why you're upset no matter where you are, your first match or something like that. But that's when I first like took note of like, this is happening. And while at the major match level, it seems like no question because everybody has the correct gear. On the club match level, there are people that want to come out and try it that don't have the gear, don't fit in or something like that. And then now they're taking a step back to take their red dot off of their pistol to shoot in that division. So I guess I take a step back tactically, right? Yeah. And you couldn't really make that make sense. So it's there's 1,000 reasons, but it's good to see that that USSL is putting that in the UML rules. So it's cool to have options, man.
Yeah, that's
and I like the way you're doing it with options. Like now it's a choice. That's one great thing about UML is that is one of the many great things about UML is that it makes you think. Like there's a lot of decisions, and now you're taking it back to even your practice. Like, okay, this match is coming up. Do I put that dot on my pistol or do I put that dot on my shotgun? Like I know that for me, I'm left eye dominant. I need to put that on my shotgun, or I'm a competent shotgunner. I need to put that on my pistol. I love it.
Yeah. And that's, again, I'm obviously, biased because that's how I learned how to shoot and the style I came up shooting. But for me, kind of the I don't want to say, all right, the brilliance, but the challenge in, what most people call a UML style, right? Which is in and of itself kind of a thing. Like we're really just a rule book and an organization. You can run any style you want. It just so happens that, again, most of our matches were in a certain Bay style format, that we really enjoy the options and that. And what I loved about it was this real challenge of putting it all together, right? And I can't remember who it was that I talked to where they like came out to one of our matches and were just struggling, and they couldn't it was driving them nuts. They're like, I don't get it. Like, because when you look at the stage, there's nothing overly difficult, right? We try not to put out overly challenging things. It's all pretty straightforward, but most of the execution is playing to your strengths and then executing, but kind of what I like to call like a rapid fire, right? And that was like the things like there's no downtime. You're here, down, up, shotgun, go, and constant processing and, paper, steel, paper, fast, slow, go. Like that to me, it was like, it looks straightforward, but it's hard to put it all together in a condensed kind of time frame and format. And that kind of goes back to that expedition style where it just seems super like, dude, this is straightforward, but we were seeing tons of penalties because everything is just constant change, go, and having to execute all of those skills in that very condensed time to me, it's a really, really fun challenge.
Yeah. Scott Green has told me that several times and even a bunch of times on the show here that he really enjoys that EMG format because of exactly what you're talking about. There's no time to do anything else. It's all complete flow from start to the end. And then when you're done, you can and let it go. So it's whoever has the best flow throughout the entire stage is the winner there. That's a really good point. Well, Jeremy, sounds great. USSL EMG Nationals again, September 16th through the 18th. Man, I really do appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your knowledge and your training regimen and stuff like that. Don't be a stranger, man. We're gonna have to do it again soon.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, so one final thought, one piece of advice, something for the audience to take away. What can you give people to chew on before they go?
So I have two.
Okay.
This is funny. It was actually, I've had these for a long time, kind of like when I go on the show, I'm going to have both of these.
Oh, nice.
So the first is one of Pete's absolute favorite sayings that applies to many situations. But Pete loves saying, stop, just stop. And that tends to be his way of when we're starting to get carried away. A few years ago, maybe it was talking about putting dots on pistols and optics. But for me, I always took that as, and he always used it for me when I first started with, hey, man, look at this gun. This new whatever is really cool. Should I go get one? And stop, just stop. Go train and buy more ammo. Right, that saved me probably so much money and really excelled my learning early on. Was just stop chasing gear, chasing this, just go, and just buy ammo and practice. Just focus on that. So that's one of my kind of final thoughts: is stop, just stop.
It's a good one. I like that.
What gear you have, practice, and investment in ammo and training will never be regretted. And then my second one is from, again, the late, great Mike Voigt. And it was, again, one of his favorite sayings of, yeah, but you didn't. And it was his favorite, everybody would come up to him. Well, I was thinking about shooting those with my pistol, but then this, or I was gonna load extra, but then I thought, and right, whatever happened on their stage that, went bad or went this or in their match, and they'd come up and they'd talk to Mike, and Mike would just look at him and go, yeah, but you didn't. and it was hilarious, and it was always funny, and it was a joke, but I kind of started thinking, and I'm like, you know what? Like, there's a lot of wisdom in that.
Yeah.
Right. It's the take responsibility you didn't. Right. And it was, for me, it was twofold. Number one, take responsibility. You made the decision. Right. And you made a poor decision. Right. Rethink that and learn from it. And then second was, stop being angry about that last stage, because you got another stage coming up. Yeah, but you didn't. Move on.
Oh, right? That's a good part.
Keep going. And it was kind of his funny way of, yeah, but you didn't. Now we're here. Let's focus on the next one. And to me, that was something that I constantly think of, when I come off a stage angry, or when I want to, I made a bad decision. Yeah, but you didn't. So now you have to deal with it and, learn from it. Let it go, but learn from it.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Yeah. Everyone wants to, justify themselves or do that self-talk and prove like, hey, I'm not a bad shooter. That was, and they got to justify it to satisfy that ego. But that short phrase, yeah, but you didn't. That resets it. I like it.
Yep.
All right. Well, two great final thoughts. Jeremy, thanks again for being on the show, man. It's great to have you.
Yeah.
You take care, and we'll talk to you soon, bud.